All right, we will get started. Welcome everybody to the Camden Harbor Committee meeting, our first, God, I just need my little microphone. This, I believe, is our first, correct me if I'm wrong, our first in-person meeting in I don't know how long. And it is wonderful to see everyone.
In December, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're yeah.
Oh, we did that one in December. That's right. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. As I always do at the beginning of these, I just like to remind everybody this is a public meeting. It is being recorded and live streamed over various platforms. Minutes are being taken. If you do have comments and questions and things like that, and we get into a discussion, as I'm sure we will, please direct those to the chair, which at the moment is me, and we'll try to keep things moving along. 1 second, Bruce. I did one more thing, and I forgot what it was. We have a number of, well, we'll get into that in just a minute. Yeah, Bruce.
Do you have anybody via Zoom besides Steve?
At the moment, we just have Steve Pixley via Zoom in his kitchen. If somebody sees somebody else pop up here, please let me know, and I'll let them into the room. We will, moving forward, just as a sort of point of order, I guess, we'll try to do these meetings in person from now on, unless, hopefully, God, knock on wood, situations will not dictate that we need to go back to Zoom. It is a good option, however. But we will try to do this in person, so if you all can attend in person, that would be awesome. I have been informed that Bob Perkins is not going to be able to attend today, and I believe that Mark Siegenthaler as well are both unable to attend today. I created the Zoom essentially for them to see if they wanted to join us. Morning. If so, in general, we'll be in person. I'm trying to think of other points of order or whatever. No, let's just haul into the agenda, I guess. Do we have any public input on non-agenda items? Anybody have anything? Mr. Thompson.
Yes. Mr. Pixley.
Oh, Steve there he is.
Good morning.
Oh, you just disappeared.
I noticed that the docks at Library Park servicing the Windjammers are in disrepair.
No. Your mind and your eyes have cheated you from the truth. Well, to be honest, that one, number 7, looks a little funky because about 4 years ago I started unbolting them and I made a bridge because they would always break because the ice would pull them apart. So that prevents them from breaking. So that one float has lost a little, some styrofoam and it's low. But remember, this is in about 4 weeks, we're getting new floats. That's one of the things I was going to report on is that I've been in contact and making sure there's going to be a big crane come in. We're going to put brand new floats in at the head of the harbor, time up. We're going to get rid of those old floats, and they're going to Rockland. Audra made a deal with the Children's Power and Steam Museum, and they're going to take about 80% of those old floats away from us. But yeah, how's that for an answer?
That sounds pretty good.
That's great.
New floats coming in over there.
Correct, brand new.
Okay.
Those are going to be custom floats, just like the marina and all that. Yep, great.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
Very
Okay, my second and last item today is on March 10th, there was a letter to the editor in local paper. I don't know if it was Free Press or the Camden Herald, and it was written by Wendy Andreessen. And Wendy outlined a concept for putting lockers along the restroom down at the public landing, which could be used for the day sailor operators for storage of their tables and gear. And I thought it is an interesting concept, and I went down and looked at that on what I call the east side toward the water. There's 44 inches between the building and the paint that defines the parking spaces along there. On the other side, it appears that it is a ramp, and which would be ADA access, I guess, for the bathrooms. At any rate, I thought it was an interesting idea, and I wanted to share it with the group here and see if there's any interest in pursuing that, suggesting it to the select board.
Well, I think it's a very cool idea. I think that it's probably not our purview. Meaning I don't think it would come to us, but I would assume that she has taken this beyond the newspaper and put it to the select board, and we could certainly hand it to Sophie as our select board liaison. But I think it looks like a really cool concept. Yeah. Hold on one second. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Dom, you want to comment?
Several years ago, Ramito and I approached Steve and asked him if we could exactly do that just for something really small, card table and sign, and attached to the Harbor Master booth. I don't know if anyone's seen that. There are boxes on each side. One of them is for surprise. One of them is for Camden Harbor Cruises, for my own. And we just made them small. We actually we each took home we actually matched the paint up with the Harbor Master booth, so it would took a chip of paint that fell off home, and we would mix it all up. And but an actual locker would be amazing.
Cool.
With a little more room and stuff.
Yeah. I think if it's something that I would hope that if the day sailors want to move forward with this, I think it's a great idea. I would definitely say that's something that should go to the select board.
We don't have a parking spot.
Yeah.
Is that official? Is that official?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Apparently nobody does.
Mr. Pixley, do you have a comment on that concept?
Yeah, Audra asked me where we could do that, and another option would be the Chamber of Commerce building.
Oh, yeah.
On the back side of that, actually, when you're walking up that alley, you can make a left, and we can maybe make a little shedder off that, and make it so you could have two more compartments. So there's some areas we can investigate.
Cool. Steve, I'm assuming that you have to go to work before too long. Am I correct?
I'm about to jettison. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind if it would be cool. I could do my report.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm going to sort of mess with my agenda already and just ask you to, if you wouldn't mind giving your Harbor Master report now, that would be helpful.
Yeah, first of all, just want to say good morning to everybody. Yes, spring's definitely right here, and I've been busy with inspectors. We had a new inspector that's taking on some new stuff, Rich Callaghan Dive Service, does a lot of work in Belfast and Rockland. He's going to come up and be taking some of Dallas Field's moorings. Dallas is kind of edging out of the inspection business. So that's good. Again, a lot of kind of figuring out when I should get it's going to be Thursday the 14th, actually, April. That's when we're going to get the crane and we're going to get the custom floats to come up and then weather permitting, we'll time up, and 15th, 16th, we'll swap the float systems out. I ordered 5 new ramparts, concrete ramparts, from the same company who sold us those for the Steamboat landing, just because I wanted to try to cobble together what we had. You guys saw pictures of what that storm did over the winter. And, me, I was going to, let this cobble them together and make it work this season, but I guess my better judgment was you know what? It's $2,000 or $1,600 for 5 new, brand new, unbroken, concrete ramparts. So the highway's going to help me. I'm going to have them delivered right there in the highway. I've talked to St. Laurent, and we're going to put that in and try to make that system go. I know you guys are working on that. diligently on with the rebuild and the future of Steamboat Landing, but so that's going to happen. Talked to Jeremy Martin about a possible putting a new dinghy rack on the right side of Steamboat Landing. We're finding out right now, today or tomorrow, if that's our property, if we can. That's about it. I got one new deputy, Dylan Troy, who's going to be, he's a full-time employee now for the town. Audrey, me, and Beth got together, and he's going to be working as assistant harbor master for the summer, and then he's already worked the winter for up at the Snow Bowl. So that should be interesting. I've been texting Jim Leo, who's worked for 24 years for the town, and I offered him like last year I cut his hours down, and then this year I said you can work this many hours, and he's like, that's not enough. I need more if I'm going to work, and I was like, well, I can't offer that, and so I'm hoping Jim's going to be okay with that. We're still kind of like talking, saying like, but I think because I would love to have a party for Jim, and I wanted to work one day a week till July 1st, at the end of the fiscal year, and then get a big party for him. So I'm hoping that still happens, and if that happens, I'll tell you guys when that party is.
Excellent.
That's about it for my report.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm gonna get going, but you can call me if for some reason you need something. Okay, guys.
All right. Yeah, we'll call you on your cell.
All right,
Sounds
thanks
good.
again.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. No, it's just me. Okay. All right. Good morning, Sophie. We just had our report from Steve Pixley with all kinds of good news. So, all right. Next on the agenda would be the meeting minutes. Did anybody get a chance to look over the meeting minutes from February 9th? Thank you, Bruce, for creating these. I thought they were quite thorough but concise, which is just the way we like them.
Ben Cummings, is he the representative from the condos?
Yep. If we don't have any changes or edits to it, do we have any motions? Might we have a motion? Oh, wait, excuse me, sorry, this was a point of order I should have done. Because we don't have both Mark and Bob in attendance, Margie and Tom are voting members today. So I think that's an interesting question. Do we need to have a vote to accept them as a voting member? I wouldn't think so.
Just for
Especially
the meeting?
since they're the two of them. Since normally if we have to vote on, if usually it's one. Well, I mean,
It doesn't hurt to have
yeah, I
a
was
vote.
just going to say, let's just, I'm going to nominate or move that we have Margie and Tom be voting members for this meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Elliot. All those in favor? 3-0. Thank you very much. Okay. Sorry, I should have done that right at the beginning. So, on the minutes, did anybody see anything that needed to be changed? And if not, could I have a motion on them?
I have no changes.
Do you have a motion form for us, Elliot?
I move that we accept the minutes from the meeting on February 9th.
Awesome. Second, anyone?
Second.
Tom seconds. Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor of accepting the minutes? 5-0. Thank you very much. Flying through our agenda.
Yeah.
All right. So the main topic of today is completing our Steamboat Landing analysis and recommendations. I do wonder, would you like me to take something out of so you can go about your life? Okay. I'm just trying to think what, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to change the agenda just slightly and take item 4 ahead of item 3. And just let you guys know sort of our upcoming tasks. As you know, the select board asked us to complete the Steamboat Landing analysis, so we're going to finish that today. The next analysis, if you will, that they have asked us to do is the review of Sherman's Cove, and specifically the protections, additional protections put in place in Sherman's Cove. So that's one that that's our next, task, significant task, if you will, large task. So we'll start that today, but very briefly, just to introduce it later in the meeting. We do have a new pier to review at 260 Bayview Street. So that's out in the coastal harbor, out sort of near the Belted Galloways, near the cows, out there. So we will be taking that up at our next meeting. And
Sherman's Cove.
it's not Sherman's Cove. Nope. So there is, in case you guys don't know, I think you do after the last meeting, we have a, I don't know what you call it, statutory or whatever. By ordinance, we have a certain number of procedures that we have to go through for every pier, and one of those is our review. Has to come within a certain amount of time of the application being found to be complete and all of that. So for that reason, we do need to essentially move that ahead of the line in front of the Sherman's Cove review. So that will be our next meeting. And we'll, again, I'm really messing with my agenda here, but that will be on April 6th is that Wednesday. That's the first Wednesday in April is when we'll take that up. So in terms of, I know I like to know what's coming. So we'll complete Steamboat Landing today and submit that to the select board before our next meeting. The next meeting will be, I would suspect, almost entirely focused on that pier. I think it'll be a one meeting review, but I don't know that. But that would be my hope. And then we'll, if we get it done early, we'll start in on the Steamboat Landing, the Sherman's Cove review. But if not, then we'll take that up at the next meeting. And Mr. Thompson.
Will we have a package of materials issued prior to the meeting?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Yep. I'll try to get that to you soon so that we have some time to review that. And I know I like to drive around and figure out where things are in the world. So that's always helpful.
Can we expect a representative from the engineering?
Yeah. So when we do that review, it'll be just the same as the previous pier that we reviewed, the Hickson Pier, I think it was called Rickson. Yeah, so it'll be the same process. I don't know for sure, but I suspect that Gartley & Dorsey's probably so we'll have a representative from the engineering firm. And if you could join us for that, Jeremy, that would be very helpful. Yeah, so that's what's coming.
And I want to add that at the select board meeting we had Monday, we changed the order of how we're reviewing the pier, and you're going to be reviewing it. Then it's going to come to the select board, right?
I'm not sure that's entirely accurate yet, so
Well,
I understand what you're saying.
I'm just giving you the information and kind of the process we agreed on at the select board was that harbor committee, then select board, then planning committee. And
We'll let you guys worry about when you get it.
Exactly. No, but it's just,
I think-
it's just to know, because
Yeah.
we've had this conversation now 3 times, and it's still in flux, and I think we're going to fix it. It needs to be fixed in the ordinance, but it makes a little bit more sense to do it this way.
Okay. So we'll get ours done.
Selected planning?
Yeah.
So we'll get ours done and then.
Jeremy disagrees.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's important just to, and I understand the select board's perspective, but it's also important what Josh was indicating earlier, where there's a process. When someone submits for an application for
Right.
something, you have to go through that process. And that process is not just laid out in the harbor ordinance, it's also laid out in the zoning ordinance.
Yep.
So there are time requirements that we have as well under the zoning ordinance perspective. And so, we'll hash that out.
Well,
I
let's-
don't know if Josh, if you wanted, if now is the time maybe to just bring up, since you're talking about Sherman's Cove and diving into it, what the select board has been talking about relatively recently. On the 15th, they had a discussion on a proposed moratorium for
Oh.
piers and structures in Outer Harbor.
Yeah,
And coastal.
And
Yeah.
I think that's important because that's going to go to voters in June. And there may be one, likely one maybe for the coastal harbor as well. And the only reason I say it's important is because when you're discussing the Sherman's Cove issues and the concerns with piers and structures in the cove and in the outer harbor, this moratoriums are a provision in state statute that allows municipalities to put moratoriums on certain development, proposed developments for a period of time. That's 180 days. And in that 180 days, the municipality and its boards are supposed to review the existing ordinances that support, that are insufficient per the moratorium language to address the development pressure or concerns that these types of piers, or in this issue, piers and structures have. It's going to be effective back to that initial date of March 15th on the outer harbor, which was when the select board initially discussed it. So when the voters vote for it in June, it's going to say 180 days, but it also says that 180 days is effective back to March
retroactive
15th.
to, yep.
Yeah.
So we'll be into this like 90 days or so once voters approve it, if they approve it, when they act on it. So that 90 days has already started.
Yeah.
Or the 180 days has already started technically. So I think it's important to review, be thorough and actively review.
But work fast.
Outer harbor stuff because,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because within that 90 days after the June vote, if it does pass, we need to come up with some other language to address the concerns. And I think it's important too to maybe reflect back on, and I have looked at the old, and sure Elliot and others were probably here and involved back in 2015 when there were proposed language, ordinance changes for the outer harbor as well that didn't make its way to voters. So I just want to share that with you. I think it's important just to focus that review on maybe what the moratorium language says and the concerns that arise in outer harbor, so that we can move forward on that. And I can certainly support this committee as you work forward through that process.
Yeah, and I struggled a little bit with, do we move forward with these reviews of Sherman's Cove, et cetera, knowing that this moratorium may be out there. But I think it is important that it's sort of like the peer review process that we keep moving it forward, because that is a proposal for a moratorium. That is something that the voters would vote on, not the select board. So I think it's important that we keep doing our work, but to Jeremy's point, do it as expeditiously as possible. Good news is we've already gotten some of it done by working on the Steamboat Landing stuff. So we've sort of done a piece of the harbor, the outer harbor, and then the Sherman's Cove being, I guess you could actually look at it as a sort of second piece. So I think it is, our agendas may get, well, let me put it this way, and this is reflects agenda item 4. We may have to have more meetings, unfortunately, in the next 6 months while we work through this. We may have a lot of work to do. And that's just is what it is. But again, I would just stress that that is a proposed moratorium. That is not a done deal by any means. The voters have the final say on whether or not that is something that they think the town and by proxy we should take up. But I think it'll probably come to our plate if it does pass. Bruce?
What's our focus on the Sherman's Cove review? Public access or pollution or waves?
That's a great question, and I think I've tried to lay it out pretty clearly in the moratorium draft, moratorium ordinance. So I think it's those things that you mentioned. It's sea level rise. We have ordinance requirements that say, about heights of the pier and all these things that are going to be inundated by sea level rise. So I think it's all of those things. It's public access. It's recreational navigation for small boats. It's sea level rise. It's kind of all of those.
The piers and the floats. You remember there was a float that was approved last year, and that sort of raised. There's been a few issues that have come up over the last year or so that have kind of brought these forward, that like, we really need to look at the ordinance to make sure that it's addressing these things properly, so.
But is it public, is public access in the purview of the harbor committee? Because I thought the harbor committee was only looking at what was in the harbor, not,
Yeah, so.
I mean,
It would be
if-
public access along the shore.
Yeah.
That's where it does become our
So
purview.
not the markers that let you go.
Not the
So
right of
along the
ways.
shore, not the right of ways, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
essentially in the water or in the intertidal zone.
Okay.
But once we get onto dry land,
It's not the.
ceases
yeah.
to become our world, essentially.
I think it's also important that when you look at the ordinance, and maybe I can try to highlight some of them and get them to you, but, currently you can't have piers beyond, I think it's Marine Ave, all the way over. So, I mean, there is some protection existing in the ordinance for piers, but the floats and those things, those are allowed out there still, so.
Yeah, you shouldn't have come to the meeting because I was going to ask you for if you could, I tried to research what the existing protections are, and they are kind of scattered. So if you could pull together,
That was my thought.
that would be great. So then we kind of know what our baseline is. This is what's there. That would be awesome. Elliot?
Is this application for 260 Bayview, is that outer harbor or coastal harbor?
That is in the coastal harbor. Yep.
And then at the select board meeting on Monday night, so on March 15th, there was the discussion of, it was on an agenda item for discussion for a moratorium on the outer harbor. And there was, I would say, a mention of coastal harbor, but that was not really discussed, and that was not the ordinance that I had drafted with Bill Kelly. At the meeting on Monday night, the select board asked to include the coastal harbor as well. So I'm trying to draft that now. It may be in two different moratoriums or two different language, because it depends how the select board wants to handle that.
Also, the start date for the moratorium on the coastal harbor would be March 21st, because it's the first time. So they're going to be staggered.
Slightly,
Well, that's the,
It's the way,
it's the way it is.
Yeah.
It starts the first time we
Start-
mentioned it at the, yeah. So.
It starts when, Sophie?
So for the coastal harbor, it's going to start on the 21st of March, because that's the first time the select board discussed this issue.
So the
So
effective
Just
So the outer harbor
discussing an
moratorium-
issue establishes a date
it can.
for implementation?
So the first moratorium on the outer harbor starts on March 15th, for 6 months, for 180 days. And the moratorium on the coastal harbor will start on the 21st of March.
And that's, Bill Kelly endorses that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
That's what, where does that come from?
it comes from the first time the select board addresses the issue, that's the MRS, that's the state statute. It's not our, trust me, we would prefer to have both on this, because it doubles the work, so.
Yeah, the harbor ordinance, it's pretty plain, detailed out pretty.
Yeah, what-
you can and can't do.
processes, exactly. All right, so that's kind of the upcoming stuff, if you will. That's so we can all prep for that a little bit. Nothing like summertime to try to have
Work on that and get that to you.
a whole lot of meetings. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because the vote will be in June, right?
Well,
That's when the
well,
vote.
yeah.
But your work on the outer harbor.
Yep.
Or any proposed changes, that would be
We're not going to wait till June.
halfway through.
Right.
And should the moratorium not pass, I think it's,
Still worthwhile work.
Yeah.
definitely still
Exactly.
worthwhile, and I would suggest that if it doesn't pass, you continue this process and propose changes that you see fit, and we'll bring those to voters in
Right.
November.
Yeah, we were already beginning a review of these areas before any moratorium discussion was ever introduced. So, and we'll continue to do that. We're kind of marching forward.
But feel free to reach out to me,
Oh, we will.
any and all of you on this, and I'll get you whatever you need.
Oh, we will. Thank you.
I'll support you.
Thank you.
Good?
Thanks, Jeremy.
Good?
Um,
Okay. Thanks.
All right, so then the main focus of our meeting today, and, is a single item, but it's a big one, is I want to complete our Steamboat Landing analysis. And just to be clear, the way we have done this process, so we've had 2 meetings now about this analysis and looking at Steamboat Landing. I think we've broken it down to its elements well. Bruce has been incredible about creating notes for each of those meetings, and then we have put them together into a what I really call an outline for a report analysis. And then the goal of today is to go through that and identify if we have missed anything. I think that's going to be very important in the existing conditions or anything, uses, et cetera. We came up with a list of solutions, possible solutions, a long list. And then lastly, and this is the most important part for today, is to settle on what our recommendations are, because we don't want to just have this be a report that goes and sits on a shelf, but rather a report that hopefully we will keep brief, but then we'll have some concrete recommendations for the select board to take action on or not. To be clear, this is an outline form that you see here, and once I actually want to edit this on the fly today as a Word document essentially, and then we will, Bruce and I will draft it up as a report, as a narrative, and that is what will go to the select board. But what I will have today, what I will be asking, is that we formalize this report and approve it. So leave the wordsmithing, if you will, to Bruce. And I thought this was just an easier way to kind of move things around and keep talking. So I would like to go through the report kind of page by page, but fairly quickly, and then we'll get to the recommendations. And that's, as I said, that's kind of our main thing.
Question.
Bruce.
You said earlier that you wanted this completed by next meeting, which is 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. That's all right, man. We can do it. We can pull it off. That's my hope.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure the deadline.
Yeah, that is the deadline. So, yeah. All right, so let's just start down. Oh, yep.
Let's make one quick comment. Just want to emphasize that all the commercial entities that have been named through all this are kind of hanging on this decision right now because the season's coming right up.
Yep.
So, boat haulers and launchers and.
Yep. No, that's one of the reasons why we want to make this.
Appreciate.
Yeah, that's why we're trying to move fast. All right, so let's just go through it section by section. Did we capture? I think the scope, section 1, the scope, I think is fairly clear. Anybody see any problem there? Yeah, Bruce.
Quick question, is it was constructed in the 1830s? I thought I read that it was in the 1850s.
So you're in existing conditions. Where did I have?
In the history.
Yeah.
1830s. I can check that, but there might be, 2 different reports might have 2 different. Yeah.
I'll
My research that
Yeah,
I
you
did
had
last year,
right,
I
you
had
had
50s. I might have got that from Ken Gross, who I would consider an authority on the subject.
tried to introduce a couple of source documents. I mean, some of them are articles, so it's not.
Mid 1800s.
Kind of like Curtis Island Lighthouse. I've read 3 dates for that lighthouse. No, I just say,
All right, we'll work on that. So then, into the existing conditions. I don't think I think we're pretty well clear there. The infrastructure and all that. And I wouldn't worry too much about sort of the grammar. This is, like I said, this is an outline, so it's pretty fly. But mostly, the infrastructure section, I'm really focused on the floating dock system, the concrete ramps, which I was pleased to hear that we are replacing a few of those this month.
I was just asking Jody the budget
For
for the repairs.
$1,600, what Steve told us, for 5. They got 5 new slabs.
And That may be the cost of materials.
It probably is, yeah.
Yeah, there's labor and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure that we have enough in the budget.
Any additions to the, or omissions from the infrastructure section? Did we capture what is there? There was a physical. And then current uses, I think
Did
is,
we not include the kayak rack?
ooh. Concrete ramp, floating docks, pilings, parking lot. No, we definitely should include the kayak racks. So currently it's one.
It's one, and we're talking about putting a second one.
Right, but this is existing.
Right.
So
But I think it's,
We could make that our recommendation.
exactly, yeah.
one more.
Why not?
That is mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yep, so one kayak / dinghy
Yeah.
storage rack, yep, on dry land. There is also a bench there. We should probably include that. It's a gray area because
It's
it's,
an infrastructure we need to maintain.
yeah,
So put it.
it's on dry land, so I sort of don't know if it's completely our purview, but,
There's, might be more at some point.
right, that's why I think it should go on there. Yep, good catch. Memorial bench.
What section are you referring to?
I am currently in section 2, infrastructure, existing conditions, subsection B, infrastructure.
And in the final, can you add page numbers?
Yeah, this will be a
Yeah,
report.
yeah.
It'll be a,
I was looking for that on Word last night, and it wouldn't help because they were already distributed.
Right.
Right here.
anything else that we have missed in the infrastructure? So we've got the floating, I think that's all.
So isn't one of the issue of the infrastructure of this thing is that the steel the reinforced steel is rusting away? And so should we say something about the fact that it is inappropriate, right?
Well, we mentioned that later.
That's the recommendation.
That's a later on thing,
Okay.
yep. What about current uses? Do we miss anything there? So we have the fishermen. This is, Elliot, this is subsection C, current uses, commercial uses.
So
Fishermen, commercial and passenger vessels.
Every commercial use, or every person that we think is using it, or
I don't think we need to list every individual
say all the different
uses, different types of commercial uses. So fishermen, commercial passenger vessels, kids camp, I think we get into a little bit of a gray area there.
Oh, we could say island deliveries.
Yeah,
Main Island Trust also probably uses it.
Main Island Trail uses it?
Don't they when they do cleanups? Oh, no, they don't.
I think they might use the
don't launch
ramp.
them.
Maybe they use the ramp, but that would just be,
That's a Richard question right there.
Not regularly,
Not regularly.
Okay. Not regularly or not right now?
not, I can't think of anybody using that
Okay.
ramp for our boats.
Okay.
so I think we might clean this commercial uses up a little bit. I see American Cruise Lines
Not anymore.
in there. But they did last year, so I think we should probably still include them as a, commercial use. And then the haulers,
We would just say cruise lines dropping off.
something like
Yeah,
that.
cruise line drop-offs.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's important to delineate them because they're kind of a unique, they have been, at least in the past, a unique use in that they come via car and get into boats. You see what I mean?
Right.
It's sort of, again,
Cruise line comes in by buses.
that's what I mean, yeah, yeah. Elliot?
I'm not seeing commercial boat launch services.
Well, so we have items 6 and 7, artisan boatworks and yachting solutions, commercial launching. I think I would,
There are
Make
others.
that way more generic.
yeah,
Port Harbor uses that,
yeah,
and Colbert probably makes the most use of it anything.
Johansson's. Yeah, rather than call out artisan and yachting solutions, make that.
right.
Yeah, I was gonna take out all mention of any. particular
Individual names and say-
individual and just say what the uses are rather than who's using them. Because that could potentially limit it to those
Exactly,
people.
no. And again, this is
Well,
just,
you can also mention in the final report that this is not an exhaustive list.
exactly, and this is current uses. This is not like saying this is the only people who can use this. This is, as of today, this is kind of a survey of who's using it. Small boats and recreational uses, I think
So,
we've,
can we rename the small boats and recreational uses, public uses? Because you have commercial uses.
Oh, you're right, it's under commercial.
It's under commercial.
Yeah.
Well,
No, it's not under
It's not under
commercial.
commercial, but
recreational, I think.
Right.
I mean, we could just call it recreational uses and ditch the small boats.
so we always have this issue that we focus a lot on commercial and business uses, and we always have this discussion at the select board that we really also have to make sure that the public has access. So if we at least could say
Public and recreational.
public and recreational, just to make sure that
Yep.
we're not forgetting that.
Yeah, I don't love
that
small
should-
boats. I think we should say,
Yeah, small boats, I don't really.
it's not really,
I don't know what a small
yeah,
boat
what is this small boat?
I think public and recreation is probably the primary use.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's, and actually it should be a thing, because launching ramp, dinghy dock, storage, parking, and access, that's all under recreational
Yep.
mostly.
But
Well,
It's all mixed, and the problem is a lot of these
Yeah.
categories aren't so clear, because we were
Yeah.
given 5 categories, but they're all mixed up on each other.
They all kind of mix up on each other. I think public and recreational uses kind of
I like
covers
this
it.
idea of
Maybe
having,
put that first.
yes.
Yeah, there's no order to this. Do we have, I think we have listed them sufficiently, kayaks, rowboats, kayaks, boats. Another public? Sure, Don.
Yeah, a lot of people just fish off it too.
Ah, that's a
I
good
was
point.
thinking about that, but I haven't seen too many
I
people.
see quite a few.
Oh, okay.
Especially,
That's
yeah,
a very
last year,
good point.
Pretty much every day there was.
So that's someone who's using it but not going out on the water. They're just going on a dock or yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
And what about our dear chief of police, Randy Gagnier, who uses the dock to go manage his lobster traps?
He is actually a commercial
Oh,
use.
is it
He's
commercial?
He's a fisherman. Yep.
It's, okay. I thought it was a hub, okay.
But no, pedestrians and fishermen, I think is a good one, because that would also include the people who come and just sit on the bench. You know what I mean? They're a user. Yep, skip rocks, exactly. The kids collect driftwood or whatever.
I knew it was on a Sergeant Lobster.
I saw him at the ramp last summer. Well, I was putting my dinghy, I think, in or out, I can't remember, and his engine had died, so he could not.
You got a new boat though.
If you have a boat, the engine's gonna die. So, all right, moving on to other commercial uses. This would be subsection 3, subsection, I guess. Launching ramp, seasonal boats, day use launches, canoes, and kayak. So here we're just trying to show. I'm not sure, honestly, on this one. If I,
At some point, we mentioned reconfiguring the dock so that the kayaks, the people that walk their boats into the water would have a separate place to do it rather than than the trailer. That's,
I'm sorry, where are we?
we are in subsection 3, launching ramp. I'll keep going up. Oh, by the way.
Launching ramp, oh, okay.
So we were basically trying to identify the current uses. So we've got
of the actual ramp.
of the actual ramp. Yeah, I don't love this section.
What's a seasonal boat?
Boats will go in the summer, in the spring. They put the
and they
boat in,
haul.
and fall,
Okay.
they take it out.
You can go to the islands or to the moorings. Or,
I mean, we do need to say that the launching ramp is used, but is it covered under the top 2 uses? You see what I mean? Dinghy dock and storage, parking and access.
well, this is one of these things where you have commercial and recreational, and these are both. It's not just one or the other.
Yeah, because keep in mind, this is the existing conditions section. You know what I mean? This is the
Right.
current
This
uses.
is the main use why it was built.
Right.
To get people out of the water.
Exactly.
So I think what's missing, and even though we all understand that when you launch a boat, you use a trailer, but we don't mention the word trailer.
And,
So there's a difference between launching a kayak that doesn't
Right.
use a trailer on the ramp and launching my Cape Dory 10 that requires a trailer to put in the water.
So,
So maybe in the write-up, because these are 2 different uses, and and because it's on not, the ramp is damaged, it's a different use if you're just carrying your kayak or using a trailer.
It's even a different use if you're launching it on your trailer versus a
Commercial.
operation, yeah.
Yes.
Two different uses too.
Yes. Because I think the issue here is the trailer and the weight, the maximum weight we can put on the ramp.
Right.
The kayak doesn't matter because it's
Well,
almost,
the other one, the day use launches, the trailer's gonna remain close by, whereas if you're
Exactly.
launching for a season, you're gonna take your trailer home.
yeah.
Sophie, you mentioned maximum weight allowed on the ramp. I'm not aware of any limitation.
I don't know.
I don't see it anywhere.
I don't think there is one stated, you know what I mean?
How about
Should there be?
combining subsections 2 and 3 somehow? To make the distinction between commercial subsection 1 and then the recreational uses.
But commercial can also launch.
Well, maybe this belongs in a section above commercial recreation, to say, here's how the ramp is used.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, I think that's it, Bruce. I think it's general launching ramp uses, general or overall launching ramp uses, and then we'll spell out, this is who's using them, doom, 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 and that's at the beginning. And the dinghy dock and storage, this is how the dinghy dock and the storage rack is being used. Then we get into the commercial uses and the public and recreational uses of the overall
Right.
facility.
Yeah.
The whole facility is used to launch ramps, for launching, for dinghies and storage, we have parking and access, and here's who's using it, commercial and
Yep.
recreational.
Yep.
And I was just thinking, in the commercial uses, do we also use occasionally for boat repairs? Do people,
They just tie up. I think they're not doing like major,
But
you
there's
know.
commissioning going on, small sailboats tend to put their masts up
yeah,
and stuff like
you
that.
can commission
which
there.
violates the
Well, that we'll get into that in a minute, but that's, I don't think in the,
Some of the purposes, basically. I guess.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's get to the conflicts and problems. Now we start getting into the meat. This is what we really hit on a lot last week. So basically, I just want to know, do people see any conflicts that we have overlooked? Any omissions before we dive into the meat of it?
We keep referring to this 10-minute limit. Where is that defined?
There is a sign.
I remember a sign that says 20-minute courtesy expected.
No, there's a 10-minute tie-up, drop-off sign.
Okay.
It's pretty beat up, and most of the letters are gone, but it is there. It is there.
So it's a good thing we need to.
Any sort of big sections, if you will, A, B, C, D, E,
So
that we missed?
the kayak rack, it's a first come, first served basis, right? You don't need a permit.
Correct.
I think you need a permit.
You need a
General.
permit, but you don't need,
A permit for the rack.
nope, a permit for
your kayak.
a permit for you only need a permit for your dinghy or kayak in the water, right? Or, in the harbor. So you just need that, and you can choose to put it at the public landing, or you can put it out there.
Okay.
And there's nothing that says you're in the rack versus on the dock.
I had a couple changes that Bob Perkins
Yep,
sent.
section D.
Well, section 3A, I was going to add 100 feet of linear storage space, including 3 pilings, which take up some space. I was going to put something in there.
Yeah,
And then the second one was in D. Instead of saying largely failed, they said worked successfully for 20 years, but needs more and more extensive repairs as it ages, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
yep. Just, I think that was a good point. Bob wrote to us last night and said, it hasn't completely failed. It's
We have differing opinions on that.
right. Okay, so not hearing any massive omissions of the conflicts and problems. I think we've got 5 of them.
There's the one of the conflict in parking, and I'm not sure, I haven't read the whole thing, but the parking access to the condo.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
that's
that-
actually in here,
That
It is
driveway.
there.
under recommendations.
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
That has to be maintained.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to do is put up a sign to officially name the dock the Worm.
No.
We'll put that on the June ballot.
All right, anything else in the conflicts and problems section 3 section?
What is the other option for Islanders stopping for the day?
The public landing?
Which you have to reserve, right, in the summer? No, you can
Nope,
just go there?
you just go there.
Well, if you have,
First come,
if you
first
have a
served.
sticker, you can.
Or even if you just, without a sticker, if you get 2 hours at the public landing,
Okay.
anybody does, if you just show up during the day.
There's no
Not-
overnight.
Not at night.
You shouldn't
So
need-
you were saying, I think you said that the Islanders come in and leave their boats all day there?
Sometimes,
So that's probably,
Yeah,
when they
and that's-
choose, they're probably doing, I'm gonna do long-term
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, and we
call a
put them,
taxi, meet them there, go get supplies or whatever, and
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
that happens.
I mean, I do wonder if in that section 3, conflicts and problems, C, if we should add one more item about lack of oversight or management, or, is that a problem? I mean, it is kind of a,
Enforcement.
yeah, enforcement, it's kind of a free-for-all, is that a problem? Well, it
The
creates.
things that I saw were the times when, that happens, which it was only a handful of times. And, what I would do is just drop someone off and have them slide back to their boat or whatever and yell on board, see if there's anyone. The other times where, like, that people have, like, overstayed their 10 minutes, there's usually someone on the boat.
Yeah,
They're
right.
putting them out, and then they'll move back and forth, which is fine.
Yeah,
And, like like I said before, I mentioned, like I always had a drill with some fasteners on board and
Yeah.
the stuff breaks and stuff. It seems to get over. The harbor masters and deputies aren't really walking down that dock a lot and saying, "Oh, that needs to get fixed."
right, it's out there a little bit. I would be a little, the more I think about it, I'm a little leery of including that as a special item without talking to Steve and his operational, because we're essentially, it could be a recommendation, that, yeah, exactly, come by more often, blah, blah, blah.
When you're driving by to pump out a boat,
Right.
the same boat's still sitting there.
Exactly. All right, so I think that's good for the conflicts and problems section. And then other considerations, of course, I think that's important to talk about, the Lime Morse project, the harbor breakwaters, the ferry pier potential, and then the most important one of all is sea level rise. So I think those are all factors that need to be considered with our recommendations and potential solutions, and I think we did. Did we miss any there? Anybody see any other considerations? I mean, did we talk about the moratorium and the potential for, I think this is a long-term
This is-
document.
Yeah, this is Steamboat Landing, this isn't
Yeah.
the rest of the harbor. Although,
But in sea level
in
rises.
effect, this landing, piers and docks and the outer harbor is not gonna affect Steamboat Landing, correct?
That's true, right? Not really. I mean, I suppose, yeah, no, right next door, yeah. But sea level rise is, all right, so nothing else there? Potential solutions. Now we get into beginning, it's sort of like two phases of, basically, just so everybody knows, I think I made this clear. The idea was create a whole bunch of solutions and then pick which ones we're actually going to recommend. You know what I mean? We can say, rebuild the whole thing. That's a potential, but it may not be the one that we actually choose. Potential solutions. Did we miss anything there? We've got problems and solutions.
Might we want to consider providing kayak and canoe launch capability separate from the ramp?
Might we want to provide, oh, yeah, so where would that be a solution?
It's in there, but it's underneath,
It's, yeah.
yeah, where somebody was recommending a dual ramp.
That was Tom, yeah, it was a good idea.
And That, I think
I saw that somewhere.
that's in there somewhere.
So I think,
Wait, we put it in another.
Where is that dual ramp?
but in this section, it's not in there. It's not in there as a potential.
Yeah, it's paragraph E under F.
Under what?
Well, we've got A followed by F.
Oh, look at that, yeah, you're right.
And then down under F, there's
All
an
right.
E which references dual ramp.
Ah, there we go.
The kayaks can obstruct the ramp for an extended period.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
That's a valid problem. I'm not sure we should point out a solution here.
No, well, I mean, I think one solution is to divide up or expand the ramp so that you did have, one place for the larger vessels and another one for hand-carried boats down in. The problem, though, so I guess what I'm saying is, I think this is a significant enough problem that we should, which we would call overcrowding on the ramp, right? Ramp overcrowding, so problem, ramp overcrowding. And then a solution would be this divide dual ramps to accommodate recreational, and I would actually expand it to say commercial, recreational, and or hand carry, you know what I mean, to sort of make it clear.
And I don't know if we want to recommend a dual ramp system, because
I think it's a potential solution, but it's not necessarily a
the
recommendation.
problem is, if you look at the picture of the Portland, they take out, there's no space to tie up dinghies. It removes the place to tie up dinghies.
No, but I think it's good, in terms of this document, I think it's important that we include it so that the select board and the public, because this will be a public document, can sort of know that we were thinking about it and sort of
Yeah,
saying,
maybe we can say, one possible long-term solution is dual ramps, one commercial, one recreational, additional, which would be it, but that would be a huge rebuild and would need more space.
exactly.
You know,
Elliot?
I wonder if the kayak and canoe launch capability is also safety related. I'm not an experienced kayaker, but I know that I often struggle to get into a kayak, depending on what the parameters are, what the water is, where I'm trying to do that. The ramp can get slick, especially in lower tide scenario with growth on it and so forth. So I wonder if that might be a safety issue. Do people struggle to get into their kayaks and canoes?
Right.
well, that's almost true almost anywhere.
Yeah, well,
Whether
and
on Lake Beach or over there, that's the two places.
I went out last year to Hosmer Pond and looked at the kayak launch
That's great.
device out there. And I didn't see it used at all. There was nobody out there using it. I just went to look at it because I'd heard of it. And I wondered if something like that might be adaptable to having finger floats coming off of the worm, so to speak. And I think that had been mentioned somewhere.
Dedicated
as a
place for
possible
kayaks.
solution.
That's possible.
So I wondered if you just get the kayaks and canoes away from the ramp entirely.
Right.
It might relieve congestion and also make it safer.
I would totally agree with that.
It'd just be, if you cleared out some of the rocks on the other side of it, on the part of the side of the dinghies,
Yeah.
if you just cleared out a bunch of rocks and had a path through the
Pathway
sand,
down, could be enough.
it could be something at least.
So we've identified all of the problems, I think. The ramps breaking up, I think we identified that, the docks, the limited storage racks, and then the overcrowding on the ramp. Did we identify the potential solutions sufficiently? We talked about commercial fees.
Should we go through these and make decisions, or?
good, let me just see how we do finish
Because
this.
we're gonna need to
Yeah,
make
now we're
recommendations.
now we're to that point, aren't we? Because I guess, so let's just skip over this for a second and look at the end, and then we'll kind of come back to this, the way I generally edit these sort of things.
I
Not
do have
enough
a question
parking.
about the image at the top.
Yeah,
for
the
general.
research. So the research section, I'm not sure. Do you think we should? I don't think, I guess I would recommend that we don't include that as its own section. It's a little odd. We did, we'll include the research that
Yeah, I
will
don't think it belongs
reference.
in the report, but it belongs in the notes that we're.
Yeah, that we did we'll reference the work that was done and what is happening in South Portland for instance, this is what they did, but I don't think it needs to be its own section.
The image I'm referring to is this, above general recommendations.
Yeah, that's from Portland, yeah.
That's the dual ramp solution.
Could we label that somehow?
Yeah, we may not even, I think it may distract. I think we may not even, I don't even think we'll include it in the final report. I think we're just going to scratch the image.
We need to look at it and see what they did, but I don't think we need to include it in the report.
We can describe it. So, yeah, to Bruce's point, we came up with these general sort of recommendations here at the end that perhaps, and I guess this is what I would suggest, is that we come up with long-term and short-term recommendations.
Two-phase approach.
Two phases. Yep. So, what are the things that we can do in the short term? And by short term, I guess let's talk about that. What do we define as short term? I would think.
Are we in potential solutions right now? Is that what we're doing?
Well, to be honest, Margie, no, it's a good question. We sort of skipped ahead to general recommendations at the
Okay.
end.
All right.
But what we're gonna, just to see what was there and how we kind of had structured this outline. Sorry,
Okay.
I know it's a
That's
little
okay.
disjointed. And then we'll.
Start at the generals and then go through the specifics.
Exactly. I just wanted to, I think that we should do a series of recommendations, some short-term, some long-term. Short-term, I would say, would be in the next 1 to 3 years. What do you think of that? That's truly short-term?
I would suggest that you put hire an engineer as number one.
Okay, so,
Because until you get somebody that has the expertise to look at this and tell you
what?
exactly what are state-of-the-art building recommendations today, you're guessing.
You're throwing money at it. Probably don't know.
You're guessing.
Yep. I would argue that that's probably going to be, that would be a short-term, I think that is a short-term recommendation when we get to that, but I think that it's going
where
to.
do we go from
it'll
here
influence
is-
the long-term. It'll influence the
I
long-term.
think that would be in the long-term section that say, that long-term doesn't mean we start it in 3 or 4 years. We can
Right.
start it now, but
Right.
that belongs, because if you hire an engineer, you're not going to do anything in the next while, because the engineer's got to do you got to appropriate funds, you got to.
Right.
And that's.
That's why I thought it'd be a
We're
short
talking
term.
about short-term, different
They may
budgeting.
have recommendations that could be implemented
That's true. That's
In the
true.
short term.
Yeah.
short term
Yeah, you're
that
right.
we have not even considered because we don't have the technical expertise to even, we don't know what we don't know.
I would agree. I think,
Yeah, I might,
I'd put that as a short-term because it's kind
And
of.
somebody might
it's
come
kind
in
of-
and say, hey, here's another job I did, similar situation, this is how we handled it, you could do this immediately, bingo.
So then let's, to keep this focused, let's go back to the potential solutions section. So this is,
5.
Section 5, yep. And let's identify what things are short terms and what things are long terms and whether we want to make them recommendations at all. So this is kind of the meat of the meeting here an hour later, sorry. So the first one, commercial fees. We're looking, the problem is boats overstaying the 10-minute time limit. First of all, I'm going to add a second item here. We say commercial fees is one, but the item B in that would be enforcement. You know what I mean? That's a pretty obvious one.
Yeah.
And I would say enforcement and signage. And so for that, I would say that is a short-term, that would be a short-term recommendation. Add better signage instead of the 10-minute sign that's fading. And have the harbor master's team come around more often to kind of that will keep things going. So that is one short-term. Commercial fees. Do we want to recommend a commercial fee for commercial use of this facility?
I had I think I sent it to you in a text, also another option would be just commercial registration. Provide proof of insurance. Or before everyone talked about the entitlement, once you get the fee. But then another option just could be registration, which is no fee, but they provide insurance. The town knows they're using it, stuff like that.
So, I mean, we actually have a vehicle already that we created 3 years ago or something. That is, so there's for the commercial passenger vessel, there's the Steamboat landing addendum. Didn't we create that? Didn't we? We never did create that one. So, I guess what I would say is this is one that we could add as a, you'd have a passenger vessel license addendum, just like they do for the public landing. Right now, we have the public landing, and we have the, do we have one for Library Park addendum? We do.
Part of the Windjammer, I think.
Yeah, the Windjammer thing.
That would be part of the Windjammer
Yeah.
license.
Right, exactly. So what I am suggesting is if the town, if the select board and town opt to use this for commercial uses, that there should be some licensing, some permitting that goes along with that. And, it could be, if you're a hauler, if you're a commercial launcher, then you need to have a permit for that. You know what I mean? You need to use it commercially for profit. Then you need to be registered with the town. And I don't have any idea what the prices would be and all that. I'm not saying we make money off of it. I'm just saying.
This is public use.
It is.
Commercial people are part of the public.
That's true. That's true. But they have due to their increased, commercial uses, increased use of a facility
Right.
is generally when they, that's why,
Are we saying that the commercial users stay there for more than 10 minutes, or they say they can't load and unload because other people are overstaying their time?
I mean,
I'm trying to,
Yeah.
what is the problem we're trying to solve? That's my.
they're just increased use, that they are a large user of the facility. Commercial users are a significant user of the facility, and for that reason, I think that it would be appropriate to have some sort of licensing, permitting, awareness, so that the town knows that they're using it and factors that in.
Yeah,
I'm not at all sure this is a problem that needs to be
That's,
solved.
yeah, that's.
Because then it's like.
You know, I keep thinking of Brockport, and yes, some commercial users do have a yearly fee. They also have a drop box for non-commercial, the general public. What percentage of people actually put their $5 in or whatever the fee is, you probably need to talk to, what's her name?
Abby.
But I'm not sure this is a problem that needs to be solved.
Because then there's also the, sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't see a problem with having those businesses who use the area for commercial gain or access, having to register or pay a fee. I don't see a problem. They're making a profit.
Right, they're using a public facility
To make a
for business.
business,
It's
yeah.
every other business that uses public property
Pays
in
something.
Camden pays something.
I don't see a
And-
problem.
The problem that Mark's brought up, which I thought was a good thing, was that all of a sudden they become entitled. I pay for this space, I get to use it, you have to move your boat right now.
Still mandate that there's a 10-minute time
Yeah,
limit.
they could still have-
Even though you
they can
paid
still have the
for it,
same
it doesn't
rules.
matter.
You can constrain this, it's not,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it should be I think it should be more of a registration, not an approval though, because you don't want someone saying, you know,
Yeah.
they didn't get approved, this is a public launch, how can I not, you know, get approved?
Except that they are using it, but I mean, it's the same as there are, you know, the public landing is a public facility, and there are limits on how much commercial use is done there. So there could be a day that would come where there's too many commercial users at Steamboat Landing, and therefore the public can't have their access.
Is that something
So-
that we can address when that happens, as opposed to speculating that it'll
That's
happen?
crisis management, that's really.
I think that's, you know, recognizing, yeah, this is recognizing that this is, we have noticed an increase of use on, you know, on the
If
thing.
you start doing permitting and fees and all this stuff, then you have to allocate funds for people to do that and to police it and to create the paperwork and make sure it's all right and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple paperwork, and it's done elsewhere around the harbor.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the thing is where, I think what we would be doing is we are recognizing that just like the public landing is a commercial and recreational facility, the Steamboat Landing is being used for both, and therefore the same requirements, or management, would, so I think that would be,
Well, it's dual use,
right.
commercial and public,
Right.
private, or public recreational. At public landing, the commercial users pay a fee, and they have designated places where the public does not go. Recreational boaters do not go to the fisherman docking area, and they don't go to the day sailor float.
That's true.
And so there's no conflict other
Right.
than traffic. Whereas in Steamboat, it's
It's one facility.
one facility for everybody, so it's how do you allocate those dual use privileges?
Right, which is why I think certainly at the beginning, while it is a dual use, it would be largely an administrative sort of situation, you know what I mean? There's certainly no exclusivity.
Yeah.
Some
It's
way
a
to make it shared. As Richard said, you know, is there really a problem here right now? But there is I see the potential for it, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't we then, to move this along, why don't we pass this to the select board as a recommendation, which we all know the select board will review, and they're not going to take our recommendations and just go, yes, 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 yes. Let's say, why don't, you know, this is a recommendation that you should consider permitting licensing for commercial users at Steamboat Landing. We're not going to tell them the fees, we're not going to tell them the details, we're just going to say, consider this. They may have this exact discussion and go, no, it's not a problem now, we're going to deal with that down the road.
So all commercial users, so we're looking at.
All commercial
summer
users.
camps, we're looking at boat launchers, we're looking at the launches. you
The
know,
launches,
Carol
yeah.
launch,
Yep.
The yachting club launch, everyone.
All commercial users is what we're talking
We
about.
share an increased liability when a commercial user uses that pier. So American Cruise Lines pulls up a 55-passenger bus, and 55 older Americans get off of the bus and go down the dock, which is not marked with any safety tape. There's no throw ring, there's no ladder. And now we're going to have them, we provided that dock. They fall off the side. There's no way to get them back on the dock because we don't have any safety equipment. We made that available for their use. What is our liability as a
Are
town?
we increasing our liability by, right now we're allowing it by not looking at it.
Right, we're not
you know,
looking. But
which
sooner or
is-
later, somebody's going to turn around and say, you know what?
But we're doing it, so.
You gave us this access.
I think
So-
it's a very good question. I think I would encourage you to add a recommendation to actually bring safety equipment to around.
Also, what happens in the process of permitting or registering, it allows you as a community to create waivers of liability
Right.
within the structure of that document, such as a registration form, to say, this is our dock.
Yeah,
you can use it. You want to board people to get on your charter boat, that's fine. But by doing so, you're assuming
good.
and hereby releasing the town of Camden.
Yep. Right now, we might be more open to liability than if we had this
So whether there's a fee or
document.
not a fee,
Yeah, yeah, no, it's
by
the
merely
registry.
going the registration route,
Yeah,
it gives us a vehicle to mitigate liability
Yep.
for
I
the
think that's
use
a great
of that
point.
dock.
yeah, this is very excellent.
So then-
Dominica, something.
Sure, Dom?
Yeah, being a commercial boat owner and buying insurance for it, my insurance policy covers my passengers on the docks that I pick them up. So if someone's coming on my boat, they fall off the dock, get injured, die, whatever, my insurance policy covers that. So I almost think the town, if the registration, then you know that they've got insurance and stuff like that. I think the town is more in threat than of just a public person tripping and falling on a piece of,
Yeah.
pier that's, it's just like someone tripping and breaking their ankle on the sidewalk, they can sue the town.
But by registering, I think the key is by registering, we can require, the town can require that the commercial
your
users
insurance coverage does
have insurance. And that's what we've done with the day sailors, for instance, and, all that jazz. Wow.
That's all it is.
Heat's coming on. So,
Consideration.
No, it's excellent.
No, that's great.
all right, so let's
Add
start,
this to the
just to
recommendations.
keep, because we don't want to be here all morning.
But add the registration, the.
Yeah, so I was gonna say,
liability, and also the safety equipment.
So
Need a
option,
minimum.
option A, I think we should have for recommendations, and I'm going to ask for a motion on this, is that we do recommend to the select board that a registration system be established for registration, licensing, permitting, whatever they want to call it, for commercial users of Steamboat Landing, that preserves it as a shared facility, and that we add safety gear
Yeah,
at the ramp, and that lastly, so it's sort of a three-part recommendation, that we increase signage and enforcement of the rules, of the dockage and ramp rules. Anybody want to go with a little motion on that? So it's licensing. So licensing would be part one. It's a three-part recommendation. That we add recommend to the select board, consider a permitting and licensing provision for commercial users.
Which may or may not be fee-based.
Which may or may not, I'm going to go there, yeah. Part two, that we add, that the town adds safety gear to the dock system, i.e. like a float, like a throw ring, et cetera. And part three, that the town increase enforcement and monitoring and increase signage about the rules for the ramp and dock system.
I don't know how enforcing is realistic, but we should mention it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just, enforcement being monitoring, So those are three things. Does anybody want to throw that into a motion?
Do these each change we make or recommendation we make need to be voted on, or do we
Well,
have to get the consensus and at the end vote on the whole thing?
all right, you want to just do it that way? Okay. So those are the three, those would all be short-term, by the way, because I do think we need to identify short and long terms. So those are all short-term
So
recommendations.
short-term number one.
That's
I
problem number
propose a
one.
motion that be included as a recommendation
Okay.
under short-term.
Anybody second that one? I'll second it. All right, so,
I need to get this.
okay. The problem was that the ramps are breaking up during the storms. We've done the research for as much as we can, other similarly open launch ramps. So these are sort of the four other solutions, if you will. Continue as is, which is really not much of an thing. Do some repairs, so that's what Steve is apparently doing right now. Hire an engineering firm and that's to Tom's point, which I think is a good one. And then lastly, redesign and rebuild Steamboat Landing. So I'm going to say the last one is certainly a long-term.
What, the
Item
redesign?
E, redesign and rebuild Steamboat Landing. That's certainly a long-term recommendation. So let's go down up the list backwards. Is that a recommendation that we would have for the town, that they consider, these are all considerations, consider redesigning and rebuilding Steamboat Landing as a long-term solution?
Yes.
I think yes. I think it's a
Absolutely.
no-brainer. Okay, so that's one recommendation. A long-term. Hire an engineering firm that will better understand how, what the forces are and what we might do. I think that is.
And that can be done in steps. You can get somebody in that can do a cursory evaluation of what exists
Right.
and what opportunities may be available to us.
We're basically saying, get a pro in for X thousands of dollars,
Right.
and there it is. So that's a short term. Do we all agree that is worth recommending? I think that's a no-brainer. Yep.
No, I have no say.
That's a short.
I have no say in this, but
That's a short term. And then lastly, is the item C, do some repairs, replace the iron connectors, bars, et cetera. I mean, that's what Steve's currently doing.
I don't think you need to recommend that.
I don't think we need to recommend it because what he's doing.
He's doing it already.
Well, no, he's just putting new slabs in. Is he replacing all the bolts and tabs with stainless steel so they'll last longer? Is that
The
something?
tabs are part of the concrete. They're not
They're
replaced.
in it.
They're embedded.
Bolts, I think in general, when they replace bolts, they have them putting stainless in.
Yeah.
Richard, is it your knowledge or understanding that those tabs are bolted together?
The tabs that come out from the concrete slabs are bolted.
They are bolted.
Relatively short.
It's
bolt,
not a long rod that is going through the
No,
length.
Each tab has
Its
a
own
connector.
bolt. So just that concept,
The tab's
Massage
integral to
your-
the concrete.
No, I mean, yeah.
It's when they pour that
to
slab.
match that concept.
So then, with respect to Sophie, though,
Those tabs in there would be good, but that may not.
I think that it would be.
Could we put stainless in any new?
I think that it should be a recommendation that we, as a short-term recommendation, that the town continue to maintain and preserve the slabs in as much working order as possible. Essentially, continue as is, with Steve. I think that's a reasonable, it's kind of a no-brainer,
Yeah.
but let's just recommend it as a, keep on trucking.
But no small improvements like stainless steel tabs?
No, that would be part of it, small improvements.
How about
He's not
restore
gonna,
and maintain in its original condition?
whereas,
Well, the original condition would be.
No, we don't want the
You don't want the
original.
original condition.
Best materials
That's what we have
available.
now.
Best
Yeah.
material available,
You would put B and
and
C
best
together.
practice.
I would put B and C together,
Yeah,
exactly.
that makes sense to me.
My point is that there are lots of holes that aren't fixed out there.
Well, so that's a management thing. We would, recommend that that the harbor master continue improving his repairs to the ramp, to keep it going for, as many years as possible, kind of thing.
Well,
It's kind of a no-brainer, like, he's preserving and within reason, improving his existing infrastructure, but not like replacing, the entire thing, rebuilding the whole thing.
I
Well,
don't
that's-
agree that that's done. The ramp has lots of holes in it, even after the seasonal repairs are made. So that's just my opinion, an observation.
Well, so maybe we
I
should,
think there are other things that could be done over there, but it's not gonna happen with Steve Dixon designing it. You don't need to quote me on that.
but we'll go.
It's on the record
Yeah,
now.
but we'll,
Now, whether, the Rockport ramp is clearly a different situation than Camden is, but they put macadam down on that through the
Mm-hmm.
top half of it.
Right.
I'm suspicious that there are probably some options.
I think that your engineer will give you
Yeah. That's right.
an
That's
immediate
gonna-
list
that's what I was
of
thinking. That's gonna-
improvements that you can make
all right,
tomorrow.
I think we have that one pretty much in the bag.
Can I
Well,
whisper
Josh,
in the?
I do need to leave.
Well, thank
Okay,
you so much.
no problem. Thank you, Richard.
Nice to meet you, Richard. Yeah, take care.
And I whisper in the
I
ear
hope so.
of the harbor committee that when we rebuild Steamboat Landing, we use environmentally friendly materials as a mere suggestion.
We can make a note of that somehow, environmentally
I
friendly.
know I'm not supposed to do this, I'm just whispering in your ear.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always try to, and I mean,
I know,
actually, that's
I know.
reasonable because we
But
use environmentally friendly, the encapsulated styrofoam out instead of the unencapsulated and that kind of
which we're
thing,
removing, right, exactly.
Yeah, so we're going in that right
Yeah.
direction, but yeah.
I think it doesn't hurt to just.
The problem of the bouncy docks. Again, I think we can take out research others, similarly open launch ramp systems, that doesn't need to be in there. Item A, but, replace in kind is sort of patch and repair. Again, I think B and C could be combined together, that's a word. But we could combine B and C into one item, which is maintain, it's just like the ramp, maintain the status quo, maintain these things as long as we can. Have best practices.
And
Yep.
and
Materials and services.
Yeah, there's
material.
no excuse to have docks like that.
That are falling apart, exactly.
Nobody has them anymore. Those are relics.
The question is, when does that become maintaining, and when does it become, short-term versus
Yeah.
long?
Yeah, I think we're just maintaining at this
And
point.
if it ever comes up to the point where somebody says, boy, we need 20 feet replaced, don't replace them with the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Have wave attenuating docks engineered and built, is item G, subsection D.
Yeah, that's where we should be with concrete decks.
Yeah, so the question is, I think that is that would be a long-term suggestion, a long-term recommendation, that they explore wave attenuating docks, because regardless of the other factors, the breakwaters, the lime morse thing, whatever, these wooden docks are not sufficient. So if they were to build a wave attenuated concrete dock, then you'd have a normal facility, right? It wouldn't move. There'd be no more worm. We'd kill the worm.
Right.
So I think that's a good long-term recommendation.
But it's, the issue is sea level rise again.
Except that these floating docks
The
would,
floating docks are-
they would accommodate it.
float.
They go right up with
They're-
it.
I get it. Oh, that would be so cool.
Dinghy and limited dinghy and kayak storage. Okay, this is a kind of a good one. So, potential solutions for the dinghy kayak storage. So, what do we think about this idea of a steamboat landing only decal? Anyone?
I don't like it.
Personally,
What if they want to go to the public landing?
Right, I like being able to use, I've done that the first couple of years I was here, I like being able to use either.
Use them both?
I mean, that's what I prefer, but,
Okay.
personally, I don't like it.
You don't like what, Elliot?
A limited use, specific area decal,
I think I'm in agreement on that one, so I think
based on my personal use.
we will not recommend that one. I agree to have the most public access. I do think we should explore adding, and it sounds like Steve's sort of already doing this, but this becomes a legal, property issue. Explore adding additional kayak and dinghy storage racks. That's an easy, and that's a short term.
And by property issue, are you referring to the rights of the condominium?
Where,
Jeremy apparently is going to look into whether or not we can even add a storage rack over there. Might not be town property.
No, it might be yours.
No, he's talking about on the condo side.
put up a
On the
sign
condo
pointing to
side,
Lake
I see.
Beach.
We can put a second one at Lake Beach.
What? That's what I said, put a sign pointing to Lake Beach.
Yeah,
Well, correct.
Additional storage.
I think we're putting a second one at Lake Beach.
Expand the floating dock system with a T or an F configuration to expand dinghy storage. I would argue that one is,
Long-term.
Long-term.
yeah.
yep.
And I think.
But is that a good recommendation, I think? I think it's worth recommending that they
Yeah,
look at that.
well, it's already overcrowded.
Right.
I would like to change it a little bit from a T to an L configuration.
I would just say, expand the floating dock system and configuration. I'm not even gonna say it's gonna be T or an L or an F or a J.
TLF, whatever.
Yeah,
Somebody said put a T, but that's gonna make both harder.
yeah, I think it's just,
the
you
F
know,
or an
expand,
Expand the floating dock.
Yeah.
expand and reconfigure the dock system to expand dinghy storage. The key is the reconfiguring.
Public.
That could also accommodate some kayak canoe launch.
So,
Exactly, because it would give a protected area for
Yeah.
people.
so this is, the problem was limited dinghy kayak storage. Okay. We have a new, oh yes, never mind, sorry. Well, we did identify a new problem today, which was the ramp overcrowding, and potential conflicts between commercial and, recreational large vessels and hand carries. I would suggest that the town, just as they're exploring adding a dinghy storage rack, explore a additional, launching system for hand-carried vessels. So, whether it's stairs down to the beaches, I don't know what it is, but, all right, so explore additional and I think it's important that we say hand carry, it's not carry launch options.
Yeah, it could be a simple solution.
Yeah.
Right, and that's definitely a short term. Okay, not enough parking. Problem, not enough parking. Steamboat Landing is part of this parking study, which
Yeah.
Sophie's going to solve the world's problems with.
Yeah. I'm just solving the world's parking problem. I need to follow up on that.
But I think-
But keep it like that, it's fine.
And I think in terms of short-term recommendations, what we've outlined here, the lot should be upgraded and landscaped so it can reach its full utilization. I think that is a hard yes. This is the Cove Road trailer,
Okay.
the Cove Road
Parking
parking
lot,
area.
yeah.
I think,
It's a mess.
that's
Yeah.
it's a mess.
So it needs more signage, it needs to be redesigned, yeah. totally.
Does it need to be paved and trailer and
I think we leave it just as, in our recommendation, I think we should say, it's a short-term recommendation, we say upgraded and landscaped to reach its full, so it can be fully utilized.
Whacker would.
Exactly.
Work.
Some gravel to fill in the holes.
I
Gravel would be
think,
fine.
so we're in item, section I, item
and signage?
Item H, but I think that's a separate item, a separate recommendation, is that I think we should, God, I hate to even say this, but I think we should increase signage at the ramp area and in the parking lot. So I think it's actually a separate, it's not just the parking area
And on the town's website,
and on the town's website.
so people know where to launch their dinghy and kayaks, where the parking is,
Yeah,
how
good point.
to-
That's how people are researching these things now. so.
Exactly.
That's a really good. That's a really good recommendation.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I think that this, I think item I, which is sort of restating the obvious, I don't think we need to include that. But item J is one that I think we should include, and I think the way we would recommend it is that the town research the parking on Steamboat Landing Road to maximize all available public parking on Steamboat Landing Road while preserving the necessary private access
Yeah.
on Steamboat Landing Road.
I think, I'll look in the parking study, but I think this is going to be paid parking
Where?
on Steamboat Landing Road.
It's going to be what?
Paid?
Yeah, paid, yeah. I wouldn't be
That's
surprised
not
if
going to
we.
pass.
Why would there be an exemption there?
Paid parking in Camden.
Oh, you're talking
Well,
about,
paid parking in Camden.
we're not going to go there
Yeah, that's-
in this
that's
meeting.
a different
Um,
discussion.
So what do we think of that for a short-term recommendation?
Sure. Town research parking on Steamboat Landing Road to ensure
All public parking possible is provided,
and all private.
and that all necessary private access is preserved. Because Bob Perkins has repeatedly made a comment about that there used to be parking spaces on the corner of Cove Road, I think it is, or C Street or whatever, and Steamboat
First
Landing.
house there.
Yeah, that's just, he's made a statement about that, fine. But I think the town should research to find out where are those spaces? Where are those parking spaces? Are they really parking spaces? Are they not? I don't know.
One question I had about that.
So that's a short term.
And this is part of the research, would be, a lot of people are driving trailers down there. There's really nowhere to turn around with a trailer.
Well, that would-
One little area, but, you know,
Yeah.
a big trailer, so you have to come down from C Street, and how hard putting.
Well, I think that's,
Oh, you back it up.
so,
That's part of the
back it,
research,
yeah.
but.
yeah, no, and I think as we said here, Bruce, since trailers are used to launch boats, turnaround space for them needs to be maintained. Yeah, so I think but I think that'll be part of it, is because they may determine, for instance, that there can't be spaces up near the turn onto Steamboat Landing, because they need to have that radius. So I think that's fine. All right, and then lastly, is there any more on this parking discussion that we need to talk about? I don't think so. I think this is kind of good. We're coming up with some long terms and some short terms. But lastly, the problem is the uncertainty of a ferry pier. So with all respect to our friends at the state level, and this is, I read last night, this is in the comp plan that the state is researching, and would like to just keep a ferry proposal on the table, so they want us to consider it. So that's why I think it's appropriate, it's in our report and all of that. So now we're to the recommendations stage. We are including it because we are discussing it today and have been, and are including it in our report. So I think we are meeting the comp plan's requirements and the state's requirements. Do we feel that including a provision for a ferry service at Steamboat Landing is something that should be recommended to the select board?
My feeling is that it would be better to put a ferry elsewhere, that it's no longer a good spot for a ferry.
It's not viable.
Because it's a long ways from town, and it's, for a lot of people, it's not walking distance, and it may not be the best place. Now, I can't think of a better place to put one, but that's not our job.
Right, that's not our job. So are we agreed that that is not something that we would recommend? We would not recommend?
I
Wouldn't recommend it, and I wouldn't recommend that we suggest we get an engineer to propose solution. I mean, that's not our.
I think this was, remember, this was the potential solutions, and it is a potential, and we are,
I think if the state comes back and says, we're going to go ahead with that,
Yeah.
address it at
Then
that
they
point.
probably
But
will.
right now,
okay.
I won't be alive when that
Ignoring
happens.
it
Or
is,
walk at low tide.
I don't know if ignoring the possibility is the.
And I don't think we
appropriate-
are
We recommend that Steamboat Landing is no longer an appropriate place
For ferry service.
I think, in reading because it's all quite clear, it just says, keep it in mind, I think it literally might even use those words, the town should keep in mind that the state is interested or is looking into Steamboat Landing as a ferry terminal landing. I think we have done that. And I think by including it in the report, but I don't think that it needs to be, we've got quite a few recommendations now.
You're aware that it exists.
We're aware it exists, it's in the report, and then,
Does the report specifically say Steamboat Landing?
yep,
Oh, okay.
it does. So,
So if you put a ferry there, then the Lemon Morris project is impacted by the ferry
That's
line
right.
there.
potentially, but not necessarily, I mean, it could be, if it's on the town facility, you know what I mean?
You could rebuild the original building.
We could bring back the turrets, yeah. So I think that's,
The building looked great.
yeah, it was gorgeous building.
When I read that they burned it down. I was
Yeah.
like, wow. Well, it's the only way to do it, basically.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest way to do it.
Okay, so, do we want to go back through what we just decided, or do we feel, I've kept relatively good notes about what the short terms and what the long term are. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I have complete confidence that you took good notes.
I have 10 short-term recommendations and 1, 2, 3, and 3 long-term. So there's not that many, which is actually what I was hoping we would get out of this. is some actual, because short terms are actually actionable, and it's 10. I'm glad we didn't do 25.
Yeah, no, it's
Do you want to mention the two-ramp system as a possible long-term? or-
That's,
or
that's,
just a
yeah, no, that's one of.
Possible long-term solution?
No, that was, I think we're going to have items, we're going to have, specific items, and
It's under AE, long-term, dual ramps.
right, exactly, because that would be part of the redesign. Yep,
Okay.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys,
Thank you.
that was quite a good lively discussion, I didn't really know. I was worried we were a little too unfocused today, but I think we got a lot done. Final, well, no, I think we should have a vote on this. That's a good point, actually. Does anybody want to have a vote, a motion on our recommendations?
I'd like to see a document before I vote on it.
I think due to the time that we have, Elliot, I think that we're going to have, I think we've identified it, and we can go through it again today if you want to. But I think that we have identified all the points. And now, nothing, let me put it this way, nothing substantive will change from this discussion. Because I know that the select board wants this document, they wanted it, well, they want it this month. They wanted it last month, actually. And I know there is a timeliness for the commercial users especially. So there is a timeliness aspect. So Bruce, did you have a motion for this, or?
I'm willing to make a motion that the recommendations, both short-term and long-term, that were proposed today, be forwarded to the select board.
Okay, motion?
Second.
Seconded by Margie. Thank you, Margie. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Thank you very much, everybody.
5.
5-0, sorry, I don't count myself. Finally, again, April 6th, 8 o'clock, this room, please. Prepare for, I will send this is for that new pier proposal. I will send the materials around. It'll be the same process that we used before, very similar process, I should say, I guess. We'll get that done, and then we'll move right into the Sherman's Cove. Oh, so speaking of Sherman's Cove, this is a little funny, but do as much research as you can on Sherman's Cove before the next meeting. And by that, I just mean I tried to do some on what are the protections for Sherman's Cove in particular. They're very hard to find.
Yeah.
See what you can find. And I say that a little bit, silly, but.
Alice posted on Facebook a few things about.
A few things, yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Facebook, luckily. But
Sid Lindsley did a lot of work in the past on public access leading to various points
Right.
in the harbor, and some of those were leading to Sherman's Cove. I guess there was some public access on Marine Ave with a couple of parking spots, and on Harbor Road, which is not marked at all. I live on Sherman's Point Road, not down by the point, closer to Route 1, but that doesn't matter. There is a loose Sherman's Point Road Association. Mary Winchell is the president of that association. And if you want, I can ask her all sorts of pointed questions about.
let us start the review, if you will, and then get her involved,
Okay.
perhaps.
Yep. Yep.
I think that could be very useful. I'd forgotten that you lived out there. So that would be super useful to have that sort of very local, hyper-local information as we move forward. But again, just kind of do what research you can as just people. You know what I mean? Meaning, let's see what the public can find, because I was surprised how little I could find.
The Sherman's Cove, if we're looking at this map,
Sherman's Cove starts at the bottom of Marine Avenue.
Marine, so Marine,
It's Marine all the way out to Northeast Point.
Northeast Point, yeah.
so Harbor and Collins and all that, that's.
Those are in the outer harbor, exclusive of Sherman's Cove. Sherman's Cove is, of course, part of the outer harbor. But, Awesome. Thank you, guys. That was quite a meeting, and we'll see you all on the 6th.
Thank you, Josh, for steering that discussion.
No, thank you guys.
And you and Bruce both for your efforts.
This whole process too, so.
It's all good.
I appreciate it.
I'll start working on the report.
You both kept notes.
Yeah. I can get everything.
And I think we both, between the two of us, I think I'm confident that we have it. So, I need to get together, meeting like this.
I think I got them.
All right, I got it.
Thank you.
My wife got it.
There we go. And,
The concept of putting
we can get together